Jeez! What is good, everybody? It is the Godfather of VR, the Ageless Wonder. We're back, and we are going to check out the Sony State of Play. So sorry that I cut this thing so close. I've just been having one headache after another as far as the other PC goes. I just tried to stream Medal of Honor, and it froze up on me, and so I'm trying to move it to an SSD file rather than the standard external. And then as far as this stream goes, I was trying to find a State of Play thumbnail. I downloaded a bunch of pictures, but OBS didn't want to recognize any of them. So what a headache. So I apologize for the tardiness. Let me see. Hold on. Grab some goggles here. Alright, so moving some files around. The Ageless One, the Godfather of VR. What is good, Ham? What is good, C Slim? So 5 minutes to go. Let's change scenery. All right, let's get it crack-a-lacking. Five minutes to go. A lot of people showing this today. So let me see. As far as people that I'm sub to, let me see. Sick Humor, Mixed Reality TV, PSVR Without Parole, Hard 8. I think BitCloud is streaming. GT7 VR today? You know what? That's a very good question because GT7 isn't in a good light right now. So would revealing it at this state of play, would it help? Would it help the game, or would people say, I don't care, it's garbage, the microtransactions, yada, yada, yada? If you ask me how I feel about it, yeah, I don't think the game is in a good light, and excuse me, VR is the only thing left right now for me to even want to think about playing it, because I'm just not really motivated to play it anymore. The game almost feels like a, I don't know if Ponzi scheme is the word that I want to use, but the meat and potatoes of GT7 are those egregious microtransactions. And the best way to get people to buy those microtransactions is to make the game playable. If you put physics in the game that cater to the hardcore, the casual people won't be able to handle it. They'll quit. And then you won't get that microtransaction money, because the hardcore people are not going to pay for those microtransactions. The hardcore racers, but the casuals will. But the casuals won't. They won't play the game if you make it too hard with the physics. So now they had to change the physics around to make the shit more arcadey. So now whenever I play GT7, I feel like I'm playing Need for Speed or some shit like that. And because of that, it's just, the game's not in a good light with me, and I just don't really have any motivation to play it. Even Basic Ali, when I found him, basically GT Sport was what he streamed. And once they started playing around with GT7, he left. He left and he hasn't been back. He plays mostly iRacing now, and he plays ACC every now and then. Rory Alexander, he mixes it up. I think if it were up to him, he would base his channel off of ACC and the LFM races because he really loves those. But again, he's another guy who built this channel off of GT Sports, so he still has to play that. He still has to give his audience GT7 because he's a full-time YouTuber now. That's his job. You said I'd love to play it for the first time. At this point, I couldn't recommend it to you. You know, unless I guess unless you want to play it with a controller and you don't mind an arcadey feel to it. But if you wanted something along the lines of a set of Corsa Competizione, no, I couldn't recommend it to you. How's the volume, everybody? Because I turned the volume down a little bit. We got a minute to go, so let me know if the volume's okay. I can turn it up a little bit. Because the volume was like loud in my ears, so I turned it down a little bit. Yeah, that's low. But I turned it down so I wouldn't have to shout over the music. But I planned on turning it up anyway. So we got 45 seconds to go. And I'd like to thank those of you who joined me. You could have went to a lot of other streams. A lot of big YouTubers are streaming this. Volume is good? Okay, cool. But I appreciate those of you who chose to hang out with me. Game could be beautiful in PSVR though. I think it will be viewable in PSVR because I will say that the Sony developers do a good job in terms of the visuals of making the Sony exclusives look absolutely beautiful. You know, and, as far as the Sony exclusives go, Blood and Truth might be the best looking one. All right, let's go. Killzone? Oh, no, Tekken. I wonder if this is going to have VR support. This is an extended look at it, but I wonder if this is going to have VR support. Because the current Tekken 7 does have VR support. You just can't play it online. It does have VR support though. Tekken 8. Will it have VR support? And if it does, can you play it online?
8 is coming to the PlayStation 5 console courtesy of our battle-hardened friends at Bandai Namco Entertainment. Now, let's check in on 2 games in development for PlayStation VR 2.
We already got that on Quest. Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy Edge? But it says Enhanced Edition, so I guess they probably... That still looks like Quest.
was telling? It was about a certain droid repair tech who had no business getting into this kind of trouble. But there they were.
I was a little worried this might happen.
Wherever it popped up.
I think there are a few new items on the shelves that might catch your eye.
The locals can be a little rough on tourists, but it's nothing you can't handle.
The first order on Batu. Surely we can count on you now.
Oh, hello, my friend.
Enhanced edition. Enhanced edition. I'm telling you, that looked like a Quest port.
Ready for battle. Let all monsters.
Demio?
My aim is true. Taste my steel.
I call lightning.
Another Quest game, if that's what this is.
Go back to the abyss.
Next one, dear. That.
You will be destroyed.
I summon fire.
Yep, Demio. In development for PSVR 2 is probably going to be a port.
Demio brings the creativity and chaos of a tabletop RPG to PSVR 2.
Ugh.
This next game is being rebuilt from the ground up and will be available outside of Japan for the first time.
Well, that's that. Damn, them look like PS3 graphics. Look like an okay game, but look like some PS3 graphics.
Hello, Madam Mason. I understand you have a shop to sell.
I think you will find my terms quite generous.
What's the catch?
You are wise to be wary.
Why is your mistress selling the shop?
She has had rotten bad luck with the last few tenants.
Those who came before you just could not seem to escape the darkness. Will you? Watch your step.
Yep, just turned it up. Sorry. How's that? I just turned up the YouTube volume a little bit. Let me know how that is.
Warning. An instability front is approaching. Take immediate shelter in a stabilized area. Locations impacted include sectors Delta and Echo.
Years. Call her. Now.
Look like an indie game for me. To me, coming 2023? Release that shit now. Yeah, didn't do anything for me.
Survive a ride from hell in Pacific Drive, the debut game from Ironwood Studio. Up next, let's check in on PlayStation Stars, a loyalty program rolling out soon.
Hi everyone, I'm Grace Chen. Not long ago, we announced our brand new loyalty program called PlayStation Stars. It's designed to celebrate you, the players. It will be free to join PlayStation Stars. As a member, you can complete various activities to earn points that can be redeemed for rewards. Digital collectibles are a highlight of the program. These are digital representations of things that PlayStation fans love. Today, I'm pleased to give you a sneak peek at some examples of our digital collectibles. Whether it's a beloved game character or a cherished device from Sony's innovative history, there will always be something new to collect and show off to your friends.
Just another form of trophies.
And I have more good news. PlayStation Stars will begin to roll out in some regions in Asia, starting in late September. It will launch in the Americas and Europe in the weeks that follow. That's it for now. Check PlayStation Blog to learn more about
NFT. No! Something broken. Your timing couldn't have been better with that one, Ham. Because this state of play is kind of putting me to sleep.
Action games are PS5 console exclusives. Let's take a look.
Oh, they using that Microsoft term, console exclusive.
그날은 갑자기 찾아왔지. 그놈들은 무자비했고 인간들은 무력했어. 인류는 형편없이 무너져갔네.
자이오니아, 버려진 자들의 도시지. 전성기에는 10만 명 이상이 살았던 곳이야.
황무지 아래 건설한 도시라니.
Now, if this was in VR, it'd be nice.
여긴 무덤인 건가요?
아니, 이곳의 주민들은 에너지 고갈로 잠들어 있는 거야. 이대로 간다면 영원한 어둠뿐이지. 이브, 우리를 도와줘.
조심해. 리스팅되지 않는 내 입구야. 아담, 뒤로 물러나. 마더스피어는 절대적이야.
이 레거시는 믿을 수 없어요. 그렇죠? 그렇다고 말해줘요.
여기 있는 누구나 그 손길이 닿은 적은 없어. 모두 버려진 것.
그건 신성 모독이에요.
릴리, 부탁해. 난 이러기 위해 태어난 거야.
이렇게 된 이상 나도 몰라요.
고용이의 천사여, 이번에는 우리를 구원할 수 있겠는가?
Says PS5 console exclusives, meaning it's probably coming to PC, probably the Epic Store.
After 3 centuries of the Tokugawa's repressive rule, the Black Ships appeared without warning, and our nation began to tear itself apart. Those who cleave to the past, those who embrace the new, and the Ronin, a warrior free of all masters and bonds. I will watch over you all as your blades carve a new future. Your time has come. Rise as one.
I look okay, but don't do anything for me. $2024, damn! Hell, you show that for?
Experience an era of great change and upheaval in Rise of the Ronin, a sprawling action RPG from Team Ninja. Before we wrap up, we've got one more update for you.
Slick controller. Give him that. I give him that.
Everyone keeps secrets. Sometimes it's the only way to protect the ones we love.
I know you. God Killer. What is it you want from me? Is it a god of war you came to find?
You don't really want war, do you, Kratos? All that blood on your hands, on your son's hands.
What is it you will not tell me?
I can't talk about it, but I just need you to trust me.
We follow your every whim.
But you don't believe in any of it.
And still I follow. Because all that matters is that you are safe.
But that's not all that matters. Who's keeping you safe?
I do not need you to protect me.
You sure about that?
Pretender God! For the old father!
Death can have me when it earns me.
What do you even know of God's word? In your lifetimes, has anyone ever worshipped you?
Oh, that was slick.
Ever prayed to you? Can you even imagine that kind of love? No! You don't care about anything beyond yourself. Beyond the monster who kills without cause.
Fate only binds you if you let it. Do what is necessary. Not because it is written.
Uh-oh!
We will make our own destiny.
He finally gave us a glimpse of his fight with Thor.
And that's the show. God of War Ragnarok comes to PS5 and PS4 on November 9th. See you next time!
Well, let me pause it. Okay, so shrink that down. Okay, so quick thoughts on this state of play. Bottom line is, if it wasn't for the Ragnarok that they showed, I would have complained that that was about 20 minutes of my life that I can't get back. I found it to be damn near snooze fest. The Ronin game wasn't bad, but other than God of War Ragnarok, nothing they showed looked next gen. So I mean that Sega game that's a console exclusive looked like some PS3 shit. So now as far as the PSVR 2 part of it, I feared this might happen. I think Sony's saving the good stuff for presumably their showcase. And I'm thinking if they have any more blockbuster titles to show us for VR, that's where we're going to see them at. But I thought we would see better than what we saw today for VR. I thought we might possibly see GT7 revealed for PSVR, or maybe a Half-Life Alyx. But no. We saw 2 Quest games that are getting PSVR 2 ports, basically. And what they showed us, that Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge Enhanced Edition did not look enhanced to me at all. It looked like it's going to be a Quest port. It's not a bad game, but that's a game that could have showed up on the current PSVR. You didn't have to wait for PSVR 2 for this game, but I know that because of I know the PSVR is dying, and a lot of that is Sony's fault for not promoting it to the very end. It's almost like they just abandoned it. Whatever third party feels like putting out on there or whatever. So yeah, that was sad, Kevin. So before I get ready to talk about this Sony Activision thing, I want to forewarn all of you that I think PSVR 2 is going to have a blockbuster launch. With Horizon Call of the Mountain. Here, let me blow this screen up so I don't get distracted by this damn chat. Horizon Call of the Mountain and the Resident Evil Village are going to be 2 big blockbuster via PSVR titles. We in the VR community think it's a given that Grand Theft Auto 5 is going to be on PSVR 2, but if it is, will it be a day one launch title? Call of Duty, would that get some sort of VR support? But in any case, short story long, because I'm drawing blanks here. After that blockbuster launch, after PlayStation VR gets rolling, until some of these third-party AAA publishers start putting games out on PSVR 2, what you're going to see is stuff like that Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge. You guys are going to see ports of games that we already have on the Quest and PC VR. So Alright, so let's talk about this Activision acquisition. So getting right to it. You guys already know the situation with that. Microsoft is trying to acquire Activision. Sony's trying to block it. I've seen how the narrative has changed with all this stuff, especially when stuff has come to light with Jim Ryan saying that Call of Duty was only offered for 3 years beyond their current agreement, which prompted people to call Phil Spencer a liar and this and that and that and this. It was funny how when this acquisition was, when it was first learned that Microsoft was buying Activision, how the narrative was Microsoft wouldn't dare pull Call of Duty from the PlayStation because the PlayStation platform makes Call of Duty the most money because it sells the most on that platform. And then as soon as it was revealed that Phil Spencer only offered a deal 3 years beyond the current agreement, then it shifted to he's a liar and it's inevitably going to be a Microsoft exclusive. Funny how that goes. So I'm not here to predict which way this deal is going to go. All I'm really going to do is give my opinion on what Microsoft or Sony stands to lose or gain by Call of Duty staying on PlayStation or becoming a Microsoft exclusive. So if Microsoft were to pull Call of Duty from PlayStation, they talk about the 70% that they would lose, or how much money that game makes them. Yeah, they would lose that. But what people are not talking about is all they're seeing is that, yeah, they would sell some consoles if they made it exclusive. And then, they would keep 100% of the money that the game would sell on Xbox and PC if they took it off the PlayStation. But the way everybody's treating it is they would lose far more than they would gain. That may be right to start off with. But let's talk about, so let's switch it around the other way. Right now, currently, with the Sony side of things, the PlayStation exclusives are great. And they're a reason to buy the PlayStation, but they're role players. They're not the star, in my opinion. For the casual gamer, let's be honest, for the casual gamer, the barrier to entry in the gaming is Call of Duty. And for somebody looking to buy their first console, there's a pretty good chance Call of Duty is the reason why they're finally ready to take the dip into gaming. And when they're ready to take that dive into gaming and they want to get Call of Duty, they're probably going to check in with their friends and see which console they're playing Call of Duty on in order to buy that console so they can play with their friends. Because they are probably unsuspecting of the crossplay. But the way the crossplay works, I don't know if you'll be able to connect with your friends anyway. I think it's just random. I think they just throw everybody in the pot. So, presumably, the person that's getting ready to buy a new console to play Call of Duty, presumably they're probably going to get it on the PS5. They have the marketing rights, along with whatever other things that they have within the deal too. So what happens after they buy the PlayStation? They buy Call of Duty. They're not just going to buy Call of Duty. If they're an armchair quarterback type of guy, they're probably going to buy Madden. They're probably going to buy 2K. Over time, they start to buy more games. Who gets all that money? Well, who gets all or a cut of that money? Okay, they buy a PlayStation. So Sony gets the money for the console that they bought. They get 30% for Call of Duty. Oh, I want Miles Morales. Sony gets 100% of that. Oh, you know what? I want 2K and I want Madden. Sony gets 30% of that. And any other game they buy moving forward, Sony gets a cut of it, if not all of it, depending on what game they buy. And to me, that's one of the things that's at stake. Not the 30% that they would lose if the game were to go to Xbox. It's the money that they would gain just for the simple fact that they got somebody through the door on the PlayStation ecosystem. That's all money that could go to Microsoft if you make Call of Duty exclusive to the Xbox and PC. Now you flip the script. Call of Duty's only available on Xbox as far as console goes. They buy an Xbox Series X. Microsoft gets 100% of that money. If they decide to buy the game, Microsoft gets 100% of that. If they decide to get a Game Pass membership in order to play Call of Duty, Microsoft gets 100% of that. You know, as far as net money goes, because they've already paid everybody else up front. Well, you know what? This is assuming they buy games too. You know what? I want Forza. They buy Forza. Microsoft gets 100% of that. I want 2K and I want Madden on the Xbox. Microsoft gets 30% of that. I want Battlefield 2042. Microsoft gets 30% of that. To me, that's the money. J-Wags was good. How the hell is there no multiplayer in GoldenEye? I've never played GoldenEye before, so it ain't my place to speak about how there's no multiplayer. But I think I think I caught a Piece of Sick podcast where I guess the game is coming to the Xbox by way of gameplay, but it won't have the multiplayer, but it's going to have the multiplayer on the Switch. Yeah. Anyway. So that's the money that Sony would stand to lose if Call of Duty were to go exclusive to Microsoft. It's not the 30% that they would lose from every copy of the game sold, digitally or physically. That if it goes there, they don't get money from somebody buying a console, and they don't get money from people buying other games, as well as the microtransactions from the other games that they would play. Buy 2K. They spend $200 in V-Bucks. Well, if they bought the Xbox for Call of Duty and they decide to buy 2K over there, now Microsoft gets that 30% of 2K sales along with the microtransaction sales. That's the money. That's one of the reasons why I think Sony is worried about that, because that's the barrier to entry. Call of Duty is the barrier to entry. And here's another reason why I think Sony is worried and why I think they should be worried. And a lot of people might not agree with me on this, but it is what it is. And that is PSVR 2. It was rumored that Call of Duty could come to PSVR 2. PSVR 2. When they first announced that PSVR 2 was coming, Sony said they wanted to bring bigger and better experiences to PSVR 2. Sony also wants mass adoption for PSVR 2, even though they're not marketing PSVR 2 as if they want mass adoption, but they say they want mass adoption. What would it take for mass adoption of PSVR 2? Because even though the Oculus Quest has moved VR forward once PSVR started to fall off. Well, now the PSVR 2 is about to take over again. What would it take to bring people to that platform as far as mass adoption? Price of the headset and games. Now, the price of the headset, I originally thought that Sony might charge $400 for the headset. But because they raised the price of the PS5 for inflation and all kinds of other shit, now I'm starting to think that the headset could cost $500 or $600. which if they do that, they can expect a very slow start for PSVR 2. As a person who never played VR before, because we've had a lot of people on the current PSVR give a myriad of reasons why they have not jumped on board with PSVR. They talked about the cord, too many cords. Well, it's only one cord. In my opinion, there's only one cord running to that black breakout box, and then there's a couple of HDMI cords and power cords, which don't affect you. The cords running from the power box, the breakout box to the headset, there's only one cord. The graphics, okay, I give them that, because there is a lot of VR games with Roblox type graphics. And most notably, AAA games. People have said, they talked about AAA games. And that means blockbuster AAA games, not just AAA games. Blockbuster games out there that have already had a foothold on gaming, but with VR support. And what would be the two games that fit that description? Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto. Those are two games that if they come to PlayStation VR 2, those games would be a system seller. There are people over on the Xbox side, probably people over on the PC side, that would get a PSVR 2 if it had Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto on PSVR 2. Let's see here. $600 I ain't buying and selling my PS5, because that will no doubt be $600 E600. No doubt. Yeah. So with that being said, if Microsoft pulls Call of Duty off of the PlayStation and Sony was planning to bring Call of Duty to PlayStation VR 2, that would be a huge blow. That's other money that Sony was counting on. So Sony stands to lose a lot. And 3 people said something that stuck with me as far as this Activision thing goes. Starting with King Thrash. He was one of the people that was very vocal in saying that Call of Duty will remain on the PlayStation. That all this stuff that's going on with the regulatory committees is just posturing back and forth between Microsoft and Sony, that the sale will go through and Call of Duty will stay on the PlayStation. I don't know. But what I will do is give King Thrash his credit for sticking to his guns and saying that it will remain on the PlayStation. I think beyond the current agreement, because it makes too much money for Activision. Then Sick Humor said something that stuck with me. He said that Sony should have never depended on a third-party game to sell their consoles. They should have had their own form of Call of Duty. They should have had their own game that would have moved consoles. Because as I said before, the Sony exclusives are all great, but they're role players. Spider-Man will sell a few consoles. God of War is going to sell a few consoles. Miles Morales sold some consoles. But for the most part, most people that probably grabbed a PlayStation probably grabbed it for Call of Duty. And then Portorock said something that stuck with me. A lot of people think nothing's going to change when Microsoft takes over once the acquisition is complete. And Portorock said you don't spend $70 billion to acquire somebody just to keep things the same. He's like, something's going to happen. And I kind of tend to lean towards that direction. So you want me, and I look at it this way. Sony's the Chicago Bulls. Call of Duty is Michael Jordan. All those Sony exclusives are the supporting cast. Michael Jordan is a restricted free agent. Microsoft made him an offer. Sony is trying to keep him from leaving. And that's the way that it all looks to me. If for those who say that Sony will be just fine without Call of Duty, maybe they will. But if they will be, if Call of Duty leaving isn't going to have any effect on them, why are they fighting so hard to keep it on there? You have Jim Ryan, I believe it's from the UK, and you have, and I think the resistance that Microsoft is getting right now is from the UK region, as far as the regulatory committees go. And here's something else. I think Phil Spencer had mentioned that Activision is not going to be, once the acquisition is complete, they're not going to be putting out Call of Duty games every year. And I think that is a move on Phil Spencer's part. So Microsoft will only have to give Sony one Call of Duty game instead of 3. Because I'm led to believe that the current agreement, is the current agreement in years or by how many games Activision owes Sony? Because if it's by years and Microsoft starts stretching those Call of Duty games out, then yeah, they might only end up having to owe Sony 1 or 2 games. But if the contract was structured by them owing them games and not years, then yeah, Microsoft can stretch it out as long as they want. They're still going to have to honor the agreement. So, but hypothetically speaking, if the deal is in years, let's say there's 3 more years left on the deal, on the current deal, and Microsoft only decides to put out one Call of Duty in the next 3 years, especially if they try to make a service game out of it, which is very well a possibility. Well, Sony only got 1 Call of Duty game. And I'm sure Sony probably looked for Call of Duty to be a big part of their ecosystem and their revenue, probably for the rest of this generation. Along with revenue that it could have brought for VR if the game goes to PSVR 2. Because here's something else that I think Sony would have done. Now, if Call of Duty were to go to PSVR 2, given how Sony's been acting lately, I can see a situation where Call of Duty would cost $70 on the PlayStation, and then they charge you an extra $10 for the VR support. If Sony planned on doing something like that, assuming Call of Duty would have come to PSVR 2, and Microsoft snatches it off the PlayStation platform, So yeah, I think in the grand scheme of things, the 30% that Sony would lose from initially taking the game off of the PlayStation platform, yeah, that's a big hunk of money. But I think Sony's worried about the additional revenue that would come just for the simple fact of somebody buying a console and coming into their ecosystem, the money that they would get off of that person buying additional games. Along with the VR part of it that I was just talking about. So yeah, in my opinion, Sony should be very worried. I'm not saying they should be quaking in their boots worried, but yeah, they should be concerned about it. And I think if they weren't concerned about it, they wouldn't be fighting so hard. Let's say the Call of Duty wasn't the blockbuster game that it is. And Microsoft, okay, isn't some of the Bethesda games going to be exclusive now that Microsoft acquired them? I think games that Phil Spencer originally said were going to stay multi-plat, and now they're going to be exclusive on the Xbox, or at least Microsoft exclusives. Sony's not screaming about that. So yeah, with that being said, I definitely believe Sony is concerned, and they're going to fight tooth and nail to try to keep Call of Duty on the PlayStation as long as possible, especially if they were planning VR support. So yes, they stand to lose a lot of money. I mean, yeah, if it were to get snatched, it would cause a chain reaction. I mean, both of them would take a hard hit. Both Microsoft and Sony would take a hard hit. But hey, we'll see how this plays out. So I'm not making any predictions on whether it'll stay or go. I was just giving my thought on why I believe Sony is concerned about it and why they should be. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. I want to thank you all for watching. This was a podcast that I wanted to do on my other channel, The Godfather of VR. But I just haven't gotten off my ass and started doing podcasts on that channel yet. I don't know what it is, but for whatever reason, I can't make myself get it in gear and start doing podcasts on that channel, but I will. Especially once things starts to pick up with PlayStation VR, because I like, once Sony stops playing around and giving us these crumbs and then going silent for 2 months, once they stop playing around, there's going to be a lot to talk about. So thank you everybody for joining me on this State of Play. So I'm not going to say this State of Play was trash. I'm just going to say it really didn't do anything for me. As far as I'm concerned, the only highlight of this State of Play was the Ragnarok footage. So with that, I think it's 7 o'clock. I got some things to do. Computer-wise, I got to move.